Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about neuropsychological testing. It's pretty clear if you have a loved one with a TBI that it is a clinical diagnosis, which means a neuropsychologist or other specialist has to examine the patient, test the patient, and determine whether or not a traumatic brain injury is present. But there are a lot of pitfalls in neuropsychological testing, and the reason for that is because I would say a good majority of neuropsychologists' business is based on what we call forensic work, which means anything that's involved in litigation. And because a lot of these brain injuries occur as a result of accidents, lawsuits are generally part of that dynamic. So neuropsychologists generally work more often with the plaintiffs or more often with the defendants. And in my practice, I've seen some real issues with some of these neuropsychologists that work for the defense a lot, because there are a variety of tests called a neuropsychological battery that is run in order to test the cognitive function, or in some cases dysfunction, of the test subject. And one of the issues that I have seen in some of these tests is that they're not reported accurately, and there are some reasons for that. Many neuropsychologists will add in specific tests that are generally not called for in a particular battery. There is one particular test which I'd like to make you aware of. It's called the MMPI-2, and I'm not going to bore you with the real name of it, but it has as a component in there something called the FBS, or the fake bad scale. Now, this was injected into the MMPI-2 years ago, and over the objection of the test maker by the defense industry that represented insurance companies. And what it was designed to do is to take otherwise legitimately injured people and paint them as malingerers, or suggest that they're faking their injury in some manner. The weird part about it is that I've recently looked at many of those test questions, and they're the very same questions that establish other diagnoses like PTSD and depression. It's simple things like, when I get up today, I really don't feel like doing much, or I'm sleepy when I wake up, or things that would show depression type symptoms. So it's a legitimate answer, but then those answers are used to suggest that the person's a malingerer, and that's why it's come under a lot of fire, and a lot of courts have not allowed its use. The other issues that we deal with a lot of times is the fact that these neuropsychologists either don't report certain scores that give the whole picture, or they will underreport the findings. And what I mean by that is in the tests there are these booklets, and they have questions and answers, and then those are scored. And if it comes within a certain score range, the test maker will say something like, hey, if it's this score, then you report it as severe impairment. Well, these neuropsychologists that have an agenda from a litigation standpoint won't do that. What they'll do is they'll water down that language and call it, clinically relevant, or some sort of benign terminology that seems to downplay the true effects of what's going on. Now, why am I bringing this up? Many people have loved ones that have sustained a TBI that have nothing to do with litigation or any sort of court-based action. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because you need to know who your neuropsychologist is. If they are aligned with one side or the other, you can expect to perhaps not get a fair reading. So investigate that. Make sure when you go to get a neuropsychological battery, talk to that neuropsychologist. Ask them, quite frankly, do you do forensic work? And if so, what percentage is for the plaintiff? What percentage is for the defense? If they say 90% for the defense in the insurance industry, you can be pretty sure that they're not going to find a brain injury even if one exists. If it's 50-50, then you can bank on, or assure yourself of a little more impartiality and a fair result. And so that's very important, because being a clinical diagnosis, that will then set the path for all of the treatment plans and views that all the treating physicians will many times come from that neuropsychological report that's done initially. So be careful out there, take care of your loved ones, and we'll talk again. Thanks a lot.